Do you feel like you're a slave to your diet? Well, we're going to have a fascinating conversation today with an author who's written a book called Diet Rebel: How to Lose Weight, Keep It Off, and Never Diet Again. Some fascinating stuff from a man who's been through it, and he knows, and we're excited to chat with him. Before I bring him on here, let me introduce who we're going to be speaking to. Again, this is the Igniting Souls Publishing Agency global live stream. We're here to launch another book, another author making a big splash in the world. We're so excited to be able to partner up and celebrate together in this live stream. Our author today, his name is Brian Harner. He's an author, a coach, a speaker who helps individuals regain their lives through the process of losing weight. And in the past 20 years, Brian himself has experienced massive weight loss, and he's spent countless hours researching and has compiled all of his wisdom and experience into this book called Diet Rebel. Brian, he enjoys helping others discover what he's learned. That's why he's here. He lives in Florida with his wife, Stacy, and his son. Let me bring him on here, and you can get to know Brian. Brian Harner, thanks so much, man. I'm so excited to be able to chat with you a little bit today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on, and I'm really looking forward to the next 30 minutes.
Yeah, let's do it. So you're in Florida right now, and we've got people watching from New Jersey. If you're watching here, let us know. This is a global live stream. We literally have people all over the globe tuning in and supporting you, Brian, and also excited to see the value that you're going to be adding to our people. I know a lot of people struggle with weight and trying to get it off, trying to keep it off. It is a lifelong struggle for so many people. Can you talk to us a little bit about why people need this book? There are tons of weight loss books. Let's just be honest. There's a lot of people here to share their knowledge about weight loss. But why do people need this book? What are you here to offer people?
Well, anybody that is struggling with chronic weight issues needs this book. And today we live in a society where 70% of American adults are overweight, 42% are obese, and we, all that weight leads to cardiovascular disease, diabetes, lack of energy, poor quality of life. And just this past 2 weeks ago, actually, yesterday, I got a phone call, and a friend of mine passed away suddenly. He was 38 years old with 2 young children, but he was obese, and he died suddenly of a heart attack. And it just broke my heart. I mean, leading up to the release of this book, and somebody I know died from, being overweight, basically. And so literally the book could save your life. Another thing today, this is a lot of things that's not being publicized right now, but 78% of all hospitalizations for COVID are overweight or obese people. So literally losing weight and doing it the right way could save somebody's life.
That's escalated the health crisis quite a bit there, and it's becoming more and more on the forefront of how important this is. So I'm so glad that you're here to speak some wisdom and share your experience. I'm talking with Brian Harner here, author of Diet Rebel. Now, Brian, before we get too much further here, I do want to keep continuing our conversation, but I do want to mention to people watching here, whether they're live, so glad that you're here watching live. If you're catching this later on, that's awesome. We're so glad that you spent the time here. Brian is going to be giving away a Fitbit fitness tracker as part of this launch. All right. And at the end of our time here today, I'm going to share the information about how you can be eligible to win a Fitbit. So stick around for that. It's going to be a good time. Brian, so super important stuff here. So what do you want people to understand about dieting? Why Diet Rebel? Why is that the name of the book? And this is the whole platform and mentality that you're building.
Right. Well, the name of the book was spawned and birthed from the fact that traditional on and off dieting just doesn't work. And we're rebelling against that because, again, I'm a statistics guy, right? I'm a math guy, so I spew a lot of statistics. But
love it. Let's do it.
I mean, every year, 40 million Americans go on a diet, right? Yet, like I said before, 72% of adult Americans are overweight. Something's not driving there, right? So what happens though with so many people when they start a diet, and this is what happened to me. I'm speaking from experience now, not from others' point of view, but I know if I'm not alone in this, right? But I was caught up in what I call diet tyranny. And the
Diet tyranny.
tyranny, yes. And the diet tyranny cycle, being a slave to a diet. And what the diet tyranny cycle really is, you make a decision to lose weight. You pick a diet that's probably the fad diet of the day, right? The most popular diet of the day. You stick to that diet for a while and you lose a few pounds and it works. But that diet is super restrictive. You're eating foods you don't like, or you're eating foods that you're forced to, or whatever, right? And over time, the white knuckle approach, you lose your momentum, and the diet slowly fades away. The pounds start coming back on, depression sets in, and you're back at the beginning, maybe even gain more weight than you lost. That's what happened to me. And then little time passes and you start that cycle over again, and you just do it over and over and over again. And the way to break out of that cycle, and this is really where the book starts, and the way to break out of the cycle, it's really to answer two key questions. The first question is, why do I overeat? And the second question is, where do I want to go? And once you honestly, truthfully answer those questions, it makes the weight loss process a lot simpler. I won't say easier. It's hard. It's definitely hard, but it makes it simpler and it gives clarity to the situation.
That's super important. The why and the where, identifying why you are where you are, and then where do you actually want to go.
Exactly.
That's some good life advice, man. That's some good gold for anyone, no matter where they're at, but especially important for what we're talking about here. And so if you're watching here and you're like, that's me, when Brian's talking about diet tyranny, you just feel like you're a slave, you feel like you're under a tyrant of this diet that doesn't give you the freedom, that just keeps pulling you back down, it seems like, and you make backwards progress. Just say, that's me, just right there in the chat, that's me, or drop a like right here, and let's see. We know that there's plenty of people here who experience this, and it's a real struggle, and we're again excited to talk with Brian here about some solutions through this book, Diet Rebel. So the diet tyranny cycle is this cycle of making the decision. You lose weight, you pick a diet plan. You stick with the plan a little bit long enough to see a little bit of results, and then the diet fades away, and then you don't have the results. Like, what would you say to someone who is stuck in this?
Well, the first thing is to sit down and be brutally honest with yourself and figure out why you overeat. For me, again, speaking from personal experience, my why was depression. I didn't realize I was depressed at the time, but I had a job that I didn't like. It was a sedentary job and boring, and I didn't like it. And when I went home, I ate to forget about the day, kind of. I ate during the day to not be bored, right, for something to do. And, I got more and more sunk in depression, but I didn't realize I was in this depression. I actually was on Zoloft and clinically diagnosed with depression. And it wasn't until I, came to the realization and the truth that I was depressed. And the reason I was overeating was because I was filling voids from other places in my life, right? I didn't like my job. I wasn't in a great marriage, things like that. I didn't have a lot of friends. I moved away from my friends, and I didn't have a lot of friends. So I took comfort in food, and food became my best friend, right? And covering up, filling those voids with food, I had to be honest with myself. And that was just feeding into depression. So I dug myself deeper into the hole. And it wasn't until I realized that I got out of it.
Wow, yeah, I appreciate your transparency. I know that you're journey is not one that is that only belongs to you. I know many can relate to that, and for you it was depression, and
Right.
and I think there are many people who would fall into that same camp there, and that is the why of why are they eating.
Right.
And
Right.
what other whys have you found in your studies and in your conversations with people? What other sort of whys of why are they eating uh, so much? Like, what have you found to be true?
Sure, sure. It's not always clinical depression, right?
Hmm.
But it does usually boil down to the simple fact that we're filling voids of some sort. And it's any addiction or any habit that we do, same can be said about drug addiction or anything like that. Food is kind of an addiction that gets not seen in a bad light, like drug addiction. It's like, oh yeah, people, I have a problem, right? But if we're addicted to food, it's like it seems to be normal, right?
Mm.
So, but usually it comes down to really trying to fill some sort of void, whether you're lonely or sad, or for in my case, depressed, or
Mm.
you might move away from home for the first time going to college, right? That freshman 10 pounds, right? A lot of that is because might be homesick. Some of it's homesickness in that case. So everybody's individual, everybody's different,
Hmm.
but it usually comes down to some sort of making up for something, filling some void, or
Yeah, there's a
compensating.
lack there.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I did want to mention, Brian, your lovely wife Stacy wants us to all recognize that the marriage to which you referred earlier, that was a stressor to you,
Yes,
is not with Stacy.
that's true. That is true.
Excellent. We'll give Stacy
That's
some
true.
credit there.
I
That's great.
am I am painfully transparent, and sometimes that gets me in trouble.
I love it. That's good. I think your transparency is of high value to this because there's unfortunately this stigma to overeating, to weight loss, to dieting. There's this stigma, and I think transparency is one step to kind of alleviate that. I think it's also important to have community, and I wanted to draw some attention to your community that you are building around this book and this concept of the Diet Rebel. You can join Brian's Diet Rebel Facebook tribe, and we'll drop the link here. Michelle is offering some great support here in the comments and providing all sorts of amazing links to be able to follow up and take next steps through this conversation. You can join the Diet Rebel Facebook tribe here in the chat, and we are providing that link there. And you can find community. What else can we expect for someone who feels alone? You said it's often this
Right,
loneliness that is why you eat. What
right.
does this Facebook tribe that you're offering, this community, offer to people who may be feeling lonely?
Well, it will offer, other than the advice and motivation that we can offer, but it will be a community of support. One of the big things that helped me when I was at the beginning of my weight loss journey was the support I received from my friends.
Mm.
I just changed jobs to a job I actually liked, and
Excellent.
we had a running group at lunch, and I was still at the beginning of my running career at that time, if you will, but I was into it enough that I could run, several miles, do 5Ks and stuff. But we had a running group at lunch, and we kept each other accountable.
Mm.
Days that I didn't feel like going out to do a run, somebody came by my desk, kicked me in the pants, and got me out the door, right? And that really helped. And it wasn't just kicking in the pants type motivation, it was support. I mean, I would have never run my first marathon if it wasn't for the support of these guys. And, they were there for me when I, was sad or mad or anything, any time I was down. So I had that support to go to. But I realized a lot of people don't have that in their lives. You know, that was the positive support I had. I also had negative support, in my life, just like we all do, right? So this family, this tribe, will be positive support for people that are going through the weight loss journey currently, and people who have gone through the weight loss journey, and we'll all be there to lift one another up and support one another and give tips, tricks, motivation, but mostly support and love.
I love it. I'm so glad that you're offering this opportunity for community for so many people who feel lonely, and that is part of the problem. And so this is an active part of the solution, is joining Brian's group here for that support, and what a great next step. If anybody watching here, it may be live, maybe later, that's fine. If you've run a 5K, let us know. 5K, put that in the comments. Maybe even longer. Brian, you were saying that you have run a marathon. Is that true?
Yes.
How many marathons? Is it one or more? It's either way, it's more than I've run, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I've run 3 marathons, but I've run a lot of half marathons. But I run three marathons. My most famous was I did run New York City.
Fantastic.
Yep. But yeah, I ran 3, and that was a blast. But it is a lot of work. It's hard to keep up for the long term. So I've run more half marathons than marathons, but it's a lot of fun. Long distance running for me is a lot of fun. It keeps me healthy, keeps me sane, keeps me motivated. I just love it. Yeah.
It's good to know that it's just whatever you do find any bit of enjoyment in as far as exercise goes. Right, for you, it's running. Right, for someone for someone else, it may not be running. Some people are like, oh my gosh, like if there's not a zombie chasing me, you're not going to catch me running.
Exactly.
But for others, it might be biking, might be rowing, might be who knows what. Find something that is enjoyable to you, and that really give you something to focus on. I've got a. Tanisha says she's run to the coffee shop before, so that's so there's some running.
Well, when I started out, I always like to tell this story. When I started out, I made the goal of running a marathon, right? But at that time, I couldn't even run across the street without it being a near fatal event. So I was there. I was, running wasn't my thing when I started, but I caught the bug and I kept going till I reached my goals.
Jan loves to get outside and do some trail riding. Jan is an author. She writes about her horses and how her horses have changed her life. And so finding these little things, these joyous things that provide, that kind of help fill that void a little bit in a healthy way is great. Michelle just says, does walking in the woods count? Absolutely, right? You get out and go for a walk.
Absolutely.
That's good for the soul right there. So Brian, I got a question for you. We got a lot of people here who maybe struggle with weight loss. We've got someone else. In fact, I would say either you do struggle with weight loss or someone who does. I think that kind of encapsulates everybody, right?
Right.
What sort of things did you hear when you're kind of at your lowest point, or when you're trying to lose weight and you're kind of beginning your journey? What were some things that people said that were helpful to you in terms of community and encouragement? And what were some things that people said that maybe weren't helpful, even though they may have meant well?
Right.
If you can think back to that time, like how can someone be a good support system, be a good supportive, encouraging friend for someone who is trying to be a diet rebel?
Right. One of the things I got tired of hearing, and it was, they were friends and people that loved me and they were trying to support me, but it's not that bad. You haven't gained that much weight. When I was at my lowest, I'm like, I just feel fat. I just don't have any energy. I hate myself. Right. They were kind of hollow words as far as, it's okay, you're not that overweight, that type of thing. It's kind of like when you're at the mile 23 of a marathon and you're giving it your all for 23 miles and you have well-meaning people in the sidelines going, only 3 more miles to go, right? That's the last thing you want to be thinking about, that you still have 3 more miles to go at mile 23, right? So it's the well-meaning things that hurt the most. It was for me personally, I'd rather have somebody call me fat, right, than to say, oh, it's not that bad, when I know deep down that, I'm killing myself. I'd rather have somebody be honest with me and tell me that, yeah, Brian, you're killing yourself and you need to change things. Now that's me,
Sure.
That's me. But those were the most interesting things. Now the most helpful things were folks that in a loving, kind way helped me, right? Help me achieve the next level, my next goals. Because in the book, I talk about short-term goals and long-term goals. Like my marathon was the pie in the sky, hardest goal, impossible goal. At the time I made it, I never thought I was going to run a marathon, right? I couldn't even run across the street, like I said, right? But the incremental support I got, especially from those guys where I worked, on a daily basis, just small chunks of, keep it up, you're doing great, that type of thing, kept me motivated, kept me going. Even though they were, at the time, almost everybody I ran with was so much further ahead of me in fitness level than I was at that time. But that kept me going, kept me motivated. So, the full spectrum. But to get back to your question, though, the worst voices I heard were the ones in my head.
Oh.
They were the ones that were saying, you're fat, you're lazy, you're never going to do it. What are you thinking? You're going to run a marathon, that type of stuff. And that kept me held down for even longer. But over time, again, the incremental steps of one success, at the beginning, I couldn't even run, right? So I ended up going from 0 to being able to run 20 minutes nonstop, right? That took about 3 months to get there. But just that one first step, having that accomplishment, then, okay, now I'm here. I can run 20 minutes at a time. Keep that going. And then I went from 20 minutes to 30 minutes, right? And even in between there's incremental goals, because you don't just go from running 20 minutes to 30 minutes, you're running 20 minutes and 22 minutes and 24 minutes, that type of thing, right? So just what quieted the voices in my head the most, other than support from others, was those incremental successes and realizing that I'm making progress. And as long as I was making progress, I could tell those voices to go away, right? Because they were liars. Yeah.
Yeah, celebrating those small successes, celebrating those little victories helps combat the powerful voices in your head trying to convince you that you're not good enough, trying to convince you you can't do it. And what a powerful thing you said, how the worst voices that you've heard were the ones in your own head. And also some really helpful advice for people who are trying to be supportive. Like you said, to not minimize your struggle, right? Like that's not helpful to almost ignore it, that it's there, to pretend it doesn't exist. That's not helpful. That's not being a truth teller. So you appreciate the truth tellers in your life who give you truth in love and the motivation to take those little next steps, and then to celebrate the successes that come from that action. Right. And you can start to see a plan for escaping the tyranny of dieting, and so good. Oh, Brian, this is good stuff, my friend. So what would you say is the biggest factor when it comes to sticking to a weight loss commitment? There's plenty of gurus, there's plenty of plans. What would you say is the biggest factor in contributing to the success of losing weight?
I think I think there were two of them for me, and I believe this to be general, is that number one, make goals that are bigger than the number. Because, every time I said I want to lose 20 pounds, 20 pounds, that would be meaningful, right? But it's just a number, right? It's just a number on a scale. It wasn't until I made goals that were personal, like, health. I knew I was killing myself with food, right? I didn't have any kids yet, and I wanted to have a future family. First of all, I wanted to be alive to have that future family, right? And second of all, I wanted to have energy to keep up with a child, right? There's no way when I was 30 and at my height of my weight, there's no way I could keep up with a little kid. I just didn't have the energy. Now, so making goals, like that was one goal, for health and future family. Another goal, obviously, we talked about this a lot, was running a marathon, right? So those goals really motivated me and gave me something to shoot for, other than just the pressure of looking at the scale and seeing the scale go down a certain amount.
That's good.
Right? So the goals were bigger than itself. The second part, again, and I talked about this a lot too already, was the support system, right? So support is crucial. And I can't stress that enough, how much the support helped me. My friends, I would not have lost the weight and if it wasn't for my friends, especially my running friends at that time.
That's so good. One, make goals that are bigger than the number. I love that. And it's so easy to set a number in mind and like, all right, if I get that number,
Right.
I'll be happy, right?
Right.
And then maybe that number comes and maybe you don't feel happy. Maybe that's
Right.
underwhelming, right? Because you
Right.
still don't necessarily feel healthy. Maybe your habits aren't where they should be. Or maybe you never reached that number and you've actually gotten healthier, but you weren't measuring that. You weren't looking for that. And so you
Exactly.
just feel discouraged. And
Right.
so that's a really powerful reminder there to set a goal that's not just a number, not a weight, not a lost pounds goal, but something bigger, something bigger. You're like you said, your family, having a family was a big
Right.
motivator for you. Other goals are fantastic. And of course, having a support system. And like we mentioned earlier, if you need a support system in your weight loss journey, and you have had all jived with what was Brian has been delivering here and sharing with us here in this live stream, go check out Brian's Diet Rebel Facebook group. The Diet Rebel Tribe is there in the chat. The Diet Rebel Tribe, and find some support, find some community in your journey, and that's fantastic. Well, Brian, just like that, we are toward the end of our time. Can you believe it? It goes by quick, doesn't it?
Yeah, I know.
But
It was
there's
great.
some good value, man, and you've proven yourself to be a transparent, a wise, a patient teacher and coach. And so I know many people will experience the actual life change, not just weight change, but life change through the teaching of this book, Diet Rebel, and by being a part of your tribe. So I really appreciate that. And all of the effort that you're putting into really helping people through this. It's fantastic.
No, thank you, my friend.
Well, Brian, I don't want to go here before we talk to people about how they can win a Fitbit. That's a good goal, right? If it's not just about losing weight, why don't you set a goal of a certain number of steps or miles in a day that you can achieve, right? That's a good way to set a healthy goal. So in order to win this Fitbit fitness tracker from Brian and Diet Rebel, Brian, can you explain people how they can be entered to win this Fitbit?
Right. Over the next month, so to October 28th, anyone who buys the Diet Rebel book and sends me the receipt, they'll be entered into the drawing. So, and you can send the receipt to Brian@dietrebellife.com.
Awesome. Brian@dietrebellife.com is the email address. Our tribe sport, Michelle's doing a fantastic job. He will provide that email in the comments here. Just email your receipt of the book. When you purchase Diet Rebel, send in that receipt and you'll be entered to win. And Brian will contact you if you're a winner there and be able to have a great tool that you can utilize in your weight loss journey as well. Fantastic. Brian, you're a generous man and you're a giver. And we appreciate so much the time and the effort that you put into this book, and excited to hear about how lives have been changed through this and souls ignited through your work as well. We're proud to have you as an author, my friend.
Great. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, if you want to get a hold of Brian, you can always check out his website, dietrebellife.com. Email him at brian@dietrebellife.com. Check out his Facebook tribe, the Diet Rebel Life Tribe. Again, all of these links are here in the comments that you can follow up and take your next best step based on our conversation today.
Can I make one correction?
Absolutely. Yes, please do.
Yeah. The website right now is both brianharner.com and dietrebelbook.com.
Diet Rebel Book. And you know what? Michelle has that link. He was ahead of me. Okay. I appreciate you guys fixing that misstep there. Awesome. Fantastic. So dietrebelbook.com to learn more. Fantastic. I appreciate that. Awesome. Very, very good. Well, my friend, our conversation's come to a close, but I know this is just the beginning for you and your book, and so excited to be able to launch this with you, my friend.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, all right, everyone, thank you so much for joining me. For those of you who are live, thank you so much for spending your time here. If you're catching this afterwards, all this stuff is still available to you as well. Remember, you can still earn a Fitbit through providing your receipt for the book, Diet Rebel. through October 28th. So there's still time. So if you're catching this later, so appreciate you spending the time here chatting with Brian Harner, author of Diet Rebel, How to Lose Weight, Keep It Off, and Never Diet Again. Make sure you tell Brian your successes, and thank you so much for joining us here at Igniting Souls Publishing Agency Global Livestream.